I destroyed my sister's life because I wanted to know if she loved me more than money. By the time I realized what I'd done, it was already too late to take any of it back. Let me tell you about the worst thing I've ever done. The kind of thing that keeps you awake at 3 in the morning, replaying every decision, every click, every lie. The kind of thing that makes you understand that some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. I'm telling you this not because I want forgiveness. I don't deserve that, but because maybe, just maybe, my confession will stop someone else from making the same catastrophic mistake I did. My name is Claire, and 2 years ago I had everything. A successful career in tech consulting, a beautiful apartment in the city, and most importantly, I had Maya, my younger sister, my best friend, the person I thought I knew better than anyone in the world. I thought I knew her. That was my first mistake. The second was deciding to prove it. Maya and I grew up in a small town in Ohio, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs to keep us fed and clothed. Mom died when I was 23 and Maya was 19, a sudden aneurysm that took her in her sleep. We had no other family. No aunts or uncles who cared enough to show up. No grandparents still living. It was just the 2 of us against the world, and that's how I thought it would always be. I became Maya's legal guardian, put my own life on hold, and worked my way through college while making sure she could finish high school without worrying about money. I paid for her college education. Every single penny of it. I went without vacations, without new clothes, without dating or a social life, because Maya's future mattered more to me than my own comfort. When she graduated with honors and landed a job at a prestigious marketing firm in Chicago, I felt like all those sacrifices had been worth it. We talked every day. Long phone calls where we discuss everything, her terrible boss, my awkward dating life, our shared memories of Mom, our dreams for the future. She was the only person I trusted completely, the only person who knew every secret I'd ever kept. Or so I thought. The thing about trust is that it's invisible until it's tested. And I never would have tested it if it wasn't for Daniel. I met Daniel at a tech conference in San Francisco. He was charming, successful, and seemed genuinely interested in me. Not just the polished professional version I showed the world, but the real me. We dated for 6 months, and for the first time since Mom died, I felt like I could build something for myself, something that wasn't about taking care of someone else. Then I made the mistake of introducing him to Maya. It started small. Maya began texting Daniel directly, just friendly messages at first. She'd send him funny memes or ask his advice about something random. I thought it was sweet that they were getting along. I actually encouraged it. I remember telling Daniel how important Maya's approval was to me, how much it meant that he was making an effort with her. I was so stupid. The night everything changed started like any other Friday. I was finishing up a project at work, running late for dinner with Daniel. My phone was charging at my desk, and I'd left my laptop open while I grabbed coffee from the break room. When I came back, there was a notification on my laptop screen, a message that had synced from my phone. It was from Maya to Daniel. Just a preview, but it was enough. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Make sure she doesn't know. My blood went cold. I stood there, coffee cup trembling in my hand, staring at those words. There had to be an explanation. Maybe they were planning a surprise for me. Maybe it was about a birthday gift even though my birthday was months away. I told myself these lies while my hands moved of their own accord, clicking into the message thread between my sister and my boyfriend. What I found made me physically sick. They'd been talking for months, flirting, planning secret meetups. There were messages about hotel rooms, about how guilty they felt but how they couldn't help themselves, about how they'd tell me eventually, but the timing had to be right. Maya, my baby sister, the person I'd sacrificed everything for, was having an affair with a man I loved. I sat at my desk until the office lights automatically shut off around me. I sat there in the dark, reading every message, torturing myself with the details. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal itself. The worst part was reading Maya's messages where she talked about me. She called me controlling, suffocating. She told Daniel that I'd held my sacrifices over her head her entire life, that I'd made her feel like she owed me something, that she could never just live her own life because I was always there, always watching, always reminding her of everything I'd done for her. Was that true? Had I been doing that without realizing it? The question haunted me even as rage burned through my chest. I didn't confront them that night. Instead, I made a decision that would change everything. I decided I needed to know the truth, not just about Daniel and Maya, but about who my sister really was when she thought no one was watching. I confronted Daniel first. I met him at his apartment the next day and told him I knew everything. He didn't even try to deny it. He just looked relieved, like he'd been waiting for permission to stop pretending. He said he was sorry, that it just happened, that he never meant to hurt me. All the meaningless words that cheaters say when they're caught. I told him we were done, and that he needed to tell Maya it was over immediately. I told him if he truly cared about either of us, he'd walk away from both of us, and let us repair our relationship without him in the middle of it. He agreed too easily. That should have been my first clue that something was wrong. But I was too focused on Maya. I needed to talk to her to understand how this had happened, to see if there was anything left to salvage between us. She answered on the first ring, her voice bright and cheerful like always. I told her I needed to see her, that it was important. She said she'd drive up to my place that evening. Then she asked if everything was okay, and the concern in her voice sounded so genuine that for a moment I questioned everything I'd read. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe I'd misunderstood. But I hadn't misunderstood. And when Maya arrived at my apartment that evening with Chinese takeout and a smile, acting like everything was normal, I felt something inside me break. I couldn't do it. I couldn't confront her. Because I realized that if I did, she'd just lie to me. She'd been lying for months and she was good at it. So good that I'd never suspected a thing. Whatever explanation she gave me, I wouldn't be able to trust it. So I did something else instead. Something I can never take back. I told Maya I'd broken up with Daniel, that it just wasn't working out. I watched her face carefully, looking for any sign of relief or guilt. But she just hugged me and told me I deserved better, that the right person would come along eventually. She was so convincing. So perfectly, flawlessly convincing. After she left that night, I sat on my couch and I made a plan. A terrible, destructive, unforgivable plan. I was going to catfish my own sister. I was going to create a fake identity online and see exactly who Maya really was when she thought no one would ever find out. Creating Evan took me 3 weeks. I didn't rush it. I couldn't afford to make any mistakes. I needed this fake person to be completely believable, so I built him from the ground up like I was constructing a real human being. I started with photos. I found a guy on a European stock photo site. Dark hair, kind eyes, the type of attractive but not intimidating face that women trust instinctively. I bought the rights to dozens of his photos and ran them through reverse image searches to make sure they wouldn't trace back to the original source. Then I aged some of the photos slightly, changed the lighting on others, and created a collection that looked like natural snapshots from someone's life. Next came the identity. Evan Mitchell, 32 years old, venture capitalist from Boston. I created email accounts, a LinkedIn profile with a fake work history that checked out if you looked up the companies, a Twitter account with years of backlogged tweets about tech startups and investment strategies. I built an Instagram filled with photos of his life. Coffee shops, hiking trails, airport lounges, book recommendations. Everything carefully curated to seem genuine and unrehearsed. I even created a fake apartment. I rented an Airbnb for a day and took photos of myself in the space from angles that never showed my face, then posted them as Evan's home. I joined online communities that Evan would naturally be part of, tech forums, investment groups, marathon training pages. By the time I was finished, Evan Mitchell existed. He had a history, a personality, a life that any reasonable person would believe was real. Then came the hard part, figuring out how to make Maya notice him. I couldn't just have Evan message her out of nowhere. That would be creepy and she'd ignore it. I needed to create what appeared to be an organic connection. So I studied her social media activity, every post and comment and like, until I understood her patterns. Maya was active on Twitter, where she followed a lot of marketing influencers and participated in industry discussions. She was trying to build her personal brand, positioning herself as an expert in digital marketing strategy. So I had Evan join those conversations. First, he responded to a few marketing threads she was active in, always agreeing with her points and adding thoughtful insights. Then he started a thread about startup marketing challenges, and several people, including Maya, contributed ideas. Evan replied to everyone, but made a point to tell Maya that her perspective was particularly valuable. It took 4 days before Maya followed him back. It took another week before she direct messaged him, thanking him for his support in a thread where someone had challenged her methodology. They started talking about the industry, about their career goals, about their frustrations with their current jobs. Evan was everything Maya needed him to be. He was successful enough to be impressive, but not so successful that he seemed out of reach. He was supportive without being sycophantic. He asked thoughtful questions and really listened to her answers, or at least I did, pretending to be him. I told myself I was just gathering information. I told myself I'd stop as soon as I confirmed that Maya was a good person who'd made one terrible mistake with Daniel. I told myself a lot of lies during those first few weeks. But here's the truth I didn't want to admit. I was already addicted to being Evan. Because when Maya talked to him, she was honest in a way she'd never been with me. A month into our online friendship, Maya started opening up to Evan about her personal life. She told him about her difficult childhood, about losing our mother, about having a sister who'd raised her, but who she sometimes felt smothered by. She told Evan that she felt guilty all the time because she knew I'd sacrificed so much for her, but that she also resented those sacrifices because they came with invisible strings attached. Every time she wanted to do something for herself, she heard my voice in her head reminding her of all the things I'd given up. She told Evan she'd been seeing someone, my ex-boyfriend Daniel, though she didn't mention that detail, and that the relationship had ended badly. She said she'd hurt someone she loved and that she'd probably destroyed the most important relationship in her life, but she also felt liberated for the first time in years. Reading these messages felt like being slowly poisoned. Each one revealed something about how Maya saw me, saw our relationship, saw her entire life. And the worst part was that I couldn't even be angry about it because she was talking to a stranger, someone who she thought would never repeat these confidences, someone who existed in a separate sphere from her real life. This was the real Maya, the one who existed underneath all the performance, all the sisterly affection, all the gratitude. And I was furious with her. But I was also furious with myself because some of what she said was true, and I'd never let myself see it before. So instead of stopping, I went deeper. Evan started asking Maya about her dreams, her fears, her secrets. And Maya answered everything. She told him things she'd never told me, about feeling inadequate her entire life, about comparing herself to me constantly, about feeling like she'd never be good enough no matter what she accomplished. She told him about Daniel. Not the truth. She said he'd been someone's boyfriend. Not mine specifically, but she admitted the affair. She told Evan she wasn't proud of it, but that for once in her life, she'd done something purely for herself without worrying about how it would affect anyone else. She asked Evan if that made her a terrible person. And I, pretending to be him, told her no. I told her that everyone deserves to make choices for themselves, that her needs mattered just as much as anyone else's. I told her she'd been carrying too much guilt for too long. I made her feel better about betraying me. Why did I do that? Because I needed her to trust Evan completely. Because I wasn't finished digging yet. Because I was already too far gone to stop. 3 months after creating Evan, I escalated things. Evan told Maya he had a business trip to Chicago and asked if she'd like to meet for coffee. I watched the cursor blink on my screen for almost 10 minutes while Maya decided how to respond. She said yes. I felt sick. I felt triumphant. I felt like I was falling off a cliff with no idea where the bottom was. I told her something had come up and Evan had to cancel the trip, but that he'd definitely make it to Chicago soon. Maya said she'd been looking forward to meeting him, that she felt like they had a real connection, that it was rare to find someone who really understood her. That's when things changed for me. Because I realized Maya wasn't just being honest with Evan, she was falling for him. This fake person I'd created, this construction of lies and manipulation, was becoming emotionally important to her. And instead of feeling guilty about that, I felt powerful. I created a scenario where Evan needed advice about a difficult family situation. I told Maya that Evan's sister, let's call her Catherine, had always been controlling and overbearing, that she'd helped raise Evan but had also made him feel obligated to her his entire life, that he felt guilty even thinking about establishing boundaries with her. Maya's response was immediate and passionate. She told Evan that he had every right to his own life, that sacrifice shouldn't come with strings attached, that his sister had made her own choices and couldn't hold them over his head forever. She encouraged him to distance himself from Catherine, to prioritize his own mental health, to remember that family doesn't mean you owe someone your entire existence.
She was talking about me.
Every word was about me, even though she didn't know it. And I realized something then that made my hands shake as I typed Evan's grateful response. Maya didn't just resent me. She actively disliked me. She wanted distance from me. She was just too guilty to actually create it. But what if she wasn't too guilty? What if someone gave her permission to walk away? What if Evan encouraged her to cut me out of her life entirely? That's exactly what I did. Over the next month, Evan slowly convinced Maya that her relationship with me was unhealthy, that I was emotionally manipulative, that she needed to establish firm boundaries for her own well-being. He shared articles about enmeshed family systems and codependent relationships. He validated every negative feeling Maya had ever had about me. And Maya listened. She started responding to my texts more slowly. Our phone calls got shorter. When I suggested visiting her in Chicago, she said she was too busy with work. When I pushed, she finally admitted that she needed some space, that she loved me but that our relationship had become too intense, that she needed time to figure out who she was as an individual. I acted hurt. I asked what I'd done wrong. I apologized for anything that had made her uncomfortable. And the whole time, I was logged in as Evan, comforting her while she cried about how difficult it was to set boundaries with me, telling her she was doing the right thing, encouraging her to be strong. I had successfully destroyed my relationship with my sister while pretending to be someone else. But I still wasn't done, because I needed to know how far she'd go. I needed to know if there was any limit to how much she'd betray me, if she thought she'd never get caught. So Evan asked Maya for money. It started small. Evan's investment firm was going through a rough patch. A deal had fallen through. Cash flow was temporarily tight. Could Maya loan him $15,000 just for a month until things stabilized? I expected her to hesitate. I expected her to ask questions, to be suspicious, to protect herself. She sent the money within 24 hours.
$15,000.
More than half her savings. To someone she'd never met in person, someone she'd only known online for 4 months. I stared at the bank transfer notification, feeling like I was going to vomit. This wasn't just about our relationship anymore. This wasn't just about testing her loyalty to me. I'd created a fake person who was now stealing from my sister, and she was letting it happen because I'd manipulated her into trusting him completely. Evan thanked her profusely and promised to pay her back with interest by the end of the month. The end of the month came and went. Evan apologized, said things were more complicated than expected, asked for 2 more weeks.
Maya said it was fine.
She said she trusted him. 2 weeks later, Evan asked for more money. Another $10,000 just to tide him over until a big deal closed. And Maya sent it. $25,000. Her entire savings account, drained to help a man who didn't exist. I sat at my computer and I wept. Not because I felt guilty, not yet, but because I finally had my answer. Maya would betray me for money she'd never get back. She'd risk her financial security for a stranger rather than trust her own sister. Everything I'd sacrificed for her meant nothing measured against the promises of a man she'd never met. But the story doesn't end there. Because what I didn't know was that Maya had done something smart. She'd kept records of everything. Every conversation with Evan, every promise he'd made, every bank transfer. And when the 3rd payment deadline passed with another excuse, Maya finally got suspicious. She hired a private investigator that I found out Maya had hired an investigator when he called me. His name was Roger Chin, and he was a former FBI agent who specialized in online fraud cases. He told me that my sister had hired him to investigate a man named Evan Mitchell who she'd met online and who had borrowed money from her under potentially false pretenses. He said he'd traced the bank account Evan had used and that it belonged to someone named Claire Thompson. He said my name slowly, carefully, like he was giving me time to process the information. Then he asked if I was Maya's sister. The silence on the phone line stretched out forever. I could hear my own heartbeat, could feel my face going numb, could sense reality crashing down around me like a building imploding. I asked him how much Maya knew. He said she didn't know anything yet. He'd wanted to speak with me first because the situation was unusual. Identity theft between family members was rare, and he wanted to understand the full picture before reporting back to his client. He asked me directly, had I stolen money from my sister? And I told him the truth. All of it. The affair with Daniel, the catfishing scheme, the gradual escalation, the money I'd never intended to ask for but had asked for anyway because I needed to know how far she'd go. I told him everything, because what else could I do? The alternative was letting Maya believe she'd been scammed by a stranger, and somehow that felt even more cruel than the truth. Rogerchen listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said something I'll never forget. Miss Thompson, I've worked fraud cases for 20 years. I've seen people destroy strangers for money, for revenge, for no reason at all. But this is the first time I've seen someone systematically destroy a family relationship just to prove they were right about something. You didn't do this to protect yourself. You did it to punish her. And the worst part is, you punished her for sins you invented yourself.
He was right. God help me. He was completely right.
Everything I discovered about Maya, her resentment, her desire for distance, her willingness to trust a stranger, I'd created those things. I'd manipulated her into revealing her worst self by presenting her with a fake person who validated and encouraged all her negative impulses. Roger gave me two choices. I could return the money immediately, and he'd report to Maya that the investigation had turned up nothing, that Evan Mitchell had disappeared, and she should consider it a painful lesson about online fraud. Or he could tell her the truth. I asked him what he thought I should do. He said that wasn't his decision to make, but that in his experience, the truth had a way of coming out eventually, and it was usually more destructive the longer it was delayed. I told him I needed 24 hours to decide. I spent that night sitting in my apartment, looking at years of photos of Maya and me. Birthday parties, graduations, holidays, random Tuesday afternoons. All those memories, all that history, all that love. Had it been real? Any of it? Or had we both been performing for each other all along? Me playing the martyr sister, her playing the grateful baby sister, while secretly resenting the roles we'd been assigned. I thought about what Maya had told Evan about me. That I was controlling, suffocating, that my sacrifices came with invisible strings. I thought about how I'd internalized that criticism and used it to justify everything that came after. But the truth was messier than that. Yes, I'd sacrificed for Maya, but I'd also built my entire identity around those sacrifices. I'd made myself essential to her not just out of love, but because it gave me purpose, gave me value, gave me someone who needed me. And when she didn't need me anymore, when she started building her own life, making her own mistakes, even betraying me, I couldn't handle it. Instead of letting her go, instead of accepting that we were both flawed humans trying to navigate a complicated relationship, I decided to prove that she was the villain and I was the hero. So I'd created Evan, a perfect trap disguised as a perfect man. And Maya had fallen into it exactly the way I designed it. The worst part was realizing that everything I'd done to her, I'd also done to myself. Because now I'd never know who my sister really was. Every memory was contaminated. Every future conversation would be shadowed by this betrayal. I destroyed the one relationship that had survived everything else, and I'd done it deliberately, methodically, with full knowledge of what I was doing. I called Rogerchen the next morning. I told him to tell Maya everything. He asked if I was sure, reminded me that there would be legal consequences, potentially fraud, identity theft, emotional damages. I told him I understood. I also told him I was returning every penny I'd taken from her, plus $50,000 more from my own savings, and that she should consider it payment for the education I'd just given her about trusting people who claimed to love her. That was 3 months ago. Roger delivered his report to Maya on a Monday morning. I know because that afternoon I received an email from her. No subject line. Just 3 sentences. I know what you did. I will never forgive you. Don't ever contact me again. I honored that request. I didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up at her apartment begging for another chance. What would I even say? That I was sorry? That I'd made a mistake? It wasn't a mistake. Mistakes are accidental. What I did was deliberate, sustained, and calculated. I destroyed my sister's trust in me, in herself, in her own judgment. I taught her that the person who'd loved her most in the world was capable of incredible cruelty. I proved that family bonds meant nothing when weighed against the desire to be right. And for what? What did I actually learn? I learned that Maya did resent me sometimes. That she struggled with our relationship. That she was capable of making selfish decisions, of hurting me, of choosing herself over me. But I also could have learned all of that through a single honest conversation. If I'd confronted her about Daniel, if I'd told her how hurt I was, if I'd asked her directly about her feelings instead of creating an elaborate deception to expose them, maybe we could have worked through it. Maybe our relationship would have been damaged but not destroyed. Instead, I chose to play God. I chose to test her without her knowledge or consent. I chose to create a fake reality where I controlled all the variables and then judged her for how she responded. The aftermath has been exactly as terrible as you'd imagine. I lost my sister, the only family I had left. I lost my self-respect. I lost my ability to trust my own motivations or judgment. I've been in therapy twice a week trying to understand how I became the kind of person who could do something like this. My therapist says I have control issues, that I struggle with vulnerability, that I'd rather destroy relationships than risk being abandoned by them. She's probably right. But knowing why I did it doesn't make it any better. I still have Evan's accounts. All of them. Sometimes late at night I log in and look at the conversations, reading Maya's messages like they're letters from a stranger. This version of my sister, open, vulnerable, honest about her fears and dreams, only existed because she thought she was talking to someone else. The real Maya, the one who talked to me, was always performing. And I was always directing the performance, never realizing that I was part of the act too. Last week, I saw on Instagram that Maya got a promotion at work. She looked happy in the photos, surrounded by colleagues, laughing at something off camera. I noticed she'd changed her privacy settings so I could still see her posts, a small cruelty, letting me watch her life from a distance while making it clear I'd never be part of it again. Or maybe it wasn't cruel. Maybe it was generous. Maybe she wanted me to see that she was okay, that she'd survived what I'd done to her, that her life was moving forward without me in it. I don't know. I'll never know. That's the price I paid for certainty about one thing. I lost certainty about everything else. If you're reading this and you're thinking about testing someone's loyalty, about creating fake scenarios to expose their true character, about engineering situations where you control all the variables, don't. Whatever you think you'll learn isn't worth what you'll lose. Because here's what I learned. Everyone has ugly thoughts sometimes. Everyone struggles with resentment and gratitude existing simultaneously. Everyone is capable of making selfish decisions under the right circumstances. That doesn't make them bad people. It makes them human. The only monster in my story was the one I created, Evan Mitchell, the perfect trap. And the person who built that trap was me. I catfished my own sister to test her loyalty, and the only person who failed the test was me. I'll spend the rest of my life knowing that I had something precious, someone who loved me despite my flaws, and I deliberately destroyed it because I needed to prove those flaws existed. Maya was right about one thing. The sacrifices I made for her did come with invisible strings. They came with expectations, with the unspoken belief that she owed me something in return. Not money or obedience, but unwavering loyalty, perfect gratitude, a relationship where I was always the hero and she was always the rescued. When she failed to live up to that impossible standard, When she made mistakes, pursued her own happiness even at my expense, expressed negative feelings about our relationship, I couldn't handle it. So I created a scenario where I could punish her while pretending to be objective, where I could hurt her while playing the victim. The affair with Daniel was real. That betrayal happened. But everything that came after, all the hurt, all the destruction, all the permanent damage to our relationship, that's on me. I had a chance to take the high road, to confront her directly, to work through the pain, to maybe even forgive her eventually. Instead, I chose the lowest possible road. I chose deception, manipulation, and psychological torture disguised as a social experiment. So no, I'll never forgive myself. I don't think I should. But if you're listening to this, if you've made it this far through my confession, maybe you can learn something from my mistake. Maybe you can choose differently when you're hurt by someone you love. Maybe you can choose honesty over deception, vulnerability over control, forgiveness over revenge. Maybe you can be better than I was. Because the truth is, I didn't just lose my sister when she found out what I'd done. I lost her the moment I decided to create Evan Mitchell. Every conversation after that was already a lie. Every "I love you" was contaminated. Every shared memory was being slowly poisoned by the secret I was keeping. The catfishing didn't reveal Maya's true character. It revealed mine. And what it revealed was someone I don't recognize anymore, someone I hope I never become again. That's my confession. That's my truth. That's the scar I'll carry forever. I destroyed my sister's life to test her loyalty, and all I proved was that I was never worthy of it in the first place. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.